My name is Sarah, and I've been married to Michael for 8 years. From the outside, our marriage seemed flawless, one of those relationships people envy. We were the perfect couple. We met in college, both of us idealistic and driven, convinced that love could conquer all. We shared our dreams, our aspirations, and we built a life together. We got married soon after graduation, and within a year, we were blessed with a beautiful home and a life full of promise. I remember our wedding day as if it were yesterday. The sun was shining, the air crisp with the early spring breeze, and Michael looked at me with so much love in his eyes that it felt like time stopped. "You're the one I've been waiting for," he said as we exchanged vows. I believed every word, and I promised myself I would always be his partner, no matter what came our way. But somewhere along the journey, things began to shift. It started small, imperceptible at first. The conversations we once had that stretched deep into the night became brief exchanges. The laughter that used to fill our home seemed quieter, more strained. The bond we shared, emotionally and physically, faded into the background of our busy lives. At first, I blamed it on the demands of adulthood. Michael worked as a software developer, and I had my own career in marketing. We had a mortgage, bills, responsibilities. We both worked long hours, and our social lives revolved around the same tired routines. The excitement we had once shared seemed buried beneath the weight of our daily tasks. Yet, despite the growing distance between us, I told myself that it was just a phase. We were both stressed. Things would get better. But then things didn't get better. I noticed how he seemed so lost in his work, how he'd stay late at the office or become absorbed in his computer, even when he was home. His presence felt like a shadow, there, but not really with me. It wasn't that he was ignoring me, but the conversations were hollow. I would tell him about my day, and he would offer the same tired, absent-minded response. "That's nice," he'd say. "Good job, honey." He'd nod, absent-mindedly scrolling through his phone or typing away on his laptop. I was beginning to feel invisible, and I hated myself for it. How could I feel lonely when I was married to the man I once couldn't live without? How could I crave attention when I had everything I thought I ever wanted? One evening, after a particularly long day, I decided to go for a walk to clear my head. As I walked around the block, I couldn't stop thinking about how things had changed. I was always the one trying to hold things together. I was the one keeping our social calendar, planning vacations, reminding Michael about important dates. It felt like I was the only one still invested in this marriage. When I returned home, Michael was sitting in the living room watching TV. He barely looked up when I came in. "Hey," I said, standing in the doorway. "How was work?" "Same old," he replied, not even glancing up. "Busy, you know." I forced a smile, but my heart sank. Yeah, I get it." That night, as I lay in bed staring at the ceiling, I realized something I had been avoiding for far too long. We were living separate lives under the same roof. We were still married, but I felt more alone than I ever had before. The love that had once been so vibrant now seemed like a distant memory. I was desperate for change. It wasn't until a few weeks later, when I least expected it, that I found the reason behind it all. It wasn't work. It wasn't stress. It wasn't our routines or responsibilities. It was something deeper, something I had failed to see. It started when I joined a local book club. I was looking for something, anything, to feel more connected to the world outside of my home. The club was small, but the members were welcoming. It felt good to talk to people who weren't tied to the life I had built with Michael. I wasn't expecting anything more than a few hours of conversation each month, but fate had other plans. That's when I met Luke. Luke was everything Michael wasn't. He was spontaneous, charming, and passionate about life. He made me laugh, and when he spoke, it felt like every word was a bridge that connected us. He was the kind of person who made you feel like you mattered, like what you said actually made a difference. With him, I could talk about anything: my favorite books, my dreams, my frustrations with my marriage. At first, it was just friendly conversation, nothing more. He was just someone to talk to, someone who made me feel seen again. But over time, I found myself looking forward to our conversations. I didn't want to admit it, but I began to crave his attention. One evening, after our book club meeting, we stayed behind to talk about the latest novel. The others had left, and the room felt quieter. Luke and I were sitting on opposite ends of the table, but the space between us seemed to shrink with every word. "You know," Luke said, leaning forward, "I really enjoy our conversations. It's refreshing to talk to someone who actually listens." I smiled, my heart fluttering. "I feel the same. You're easy to talk to." There was a brief silence, but it wasn't uncomfortable. It was as if we were both waiting for something, though neither of us knew what. And then, without warning, he leaned across the table and kissed me. It was soft, tentative, but electric. For a moment, I let myself fall into it. I let go of everything: the loneliness, the frustration, the ache I had been carrying for so long. But just as quickly, I pulled away. The reality of what I was doing hit me like a wave. "This is wrong," I whispered, my voice trembling. "I know," he said, his eyes filled with regret. "I'm sorry." I left that night in a daze, my mind spinning. The kiss, the connection, the longing, it all felt so intense, yet I knew it wasn't real. What I was feeling wasn't love. It was a craving for the connection I had lost with Michael. It was a desire to feel important again, but it wasn't real love, and deep down I knew that. I didn't see Luke again after that. I avoided him, and I distanced myself from the book club, hoping that the space would help me clear my mind. But the truth was, I wasn't just avoiding Luke. I was avoiding myself. I didn't want to confront the reality of my marriage, the cracks that had formed long before Luke had come into my life. Luke texted a few times, but I ignored him, hoping the silence would help me move on. But avoiding the truth didn't make it go away. A few days later, I found an old journal from when Michael and I had first started dating. I flipped through its pages, reading about the hopes and dreams we had shared. I could feel the passion we once had, the excitement in every word. I realized, with a deep ache in my chest, how far we had fallen. Michael and I had drifted apart, not because of some external force, but because we had both neglected each other. We had both been so absorbed in our own worlds that we forgot the most important thing: us. That's when I knew I had to make a choice. I couldn't keep pretending everything was fine. I couldn't keep waiting for Michael to change or for the magic to come back on its own. If I wanted to save our marriage, I had to be the one to act. The next day, I planned a date night for us. I cooked his favorite dinner, lit candles, and even found the wine we had shared on our honeymoon. When Michael came home, he looked at me in surprise. "What's this?" he asked, his voice softer than usual. "A chance for us to reconnect," I said, smiling nervously. "Just the two of us." We ate dinner slowly, savoring the food, the wine, and most of all, the time together. After the meal, I took his hand and looked into his eyes. "I miss us," I said, my voice quiet. "I feel like we've been living separate lives for too long. I don't want to feel like this anymore." Michael's expression softened, and he reached for my hand. "I miss us too, Sarah. I've been so caught up in work, in everything else, that I forgot what we had. I've been scared that we were losing each other, but too afraid to do anything about it." Tears welled up in my eyes as I squeezed his hand. "I've been scared too. I didn't know how to fix it." We spent hours talking, truly talking, about our fears, our dreams, and the things we had let slide over the years. And while it wasn't easy, it felt like a weight had been lifted. In the days and weeks that followed, Michael and I worked hard to rebuild the bond we had lost. We started talking more, listening more, and making time for each other again. It wasn't always smooth. There were moments of doubt, of frustration, but we kept going because we both knew that love didn't just happen on its own. We had to fight for it. And so we did. We fought for our marriage because it was worth fighting for. As for Luke, I distanced myself from him completely. I stopped attending the book club and deleted his number. It wasn't fair to him or Michael to keep that connection alive. Life isn't perfect, but it's real. And that's all I've ever wanted. If you enjoy the story, please like, subscribe, and share.